Gets there, he sits on the chair and he's looking at the wall and just stares. And then he notices on the table that there's these handcuffs that are connected to the chair, and willingly, unprovoked, decides to put the handcuffs on and continue to stare at the wall. A couple minutes go by and he looks around and gets up as if he's about to leave, and obviously the handcuffs keep him to the table, and he looks confused as to why that's there, and he sits back down. On the table is a blank piece of paper, and he picks it up and looks at it as almost if he's trying to read something. Eventually an officer would come into the room and ask Ryan a couple simple questions like what's his name and his social security and his address. He had no problem answering these. As a matter of fact, this would be the only thing that Ryan would answer that would make sense, because when the officer would ask if he had graduated and if Heather was his girlfriend, his story would change multiple times for no real reason. When the officer would ask him who the girl was, his story would change over and over again to I don't know who the girl was, to he does know who the girl is and that she's asleep. It would just flip-flop. Frustrated, the officer says, "Hey, look man, there's a dead girl inside your house and I need to know what happened to her." Then it's like a light switch flicked in Ryan's head. He sat up, leaned in, and was completely laser focused on the officer. He would say, "Richie and his dad came in and shot us both in the head with bows and arrows." And then he would say, wait, it wasn't bows and arrows, it was revolvers. He shot me in the head and he shot her in the head with the revolvers. And his story would just keep changing and had a lot of holes in it. Irritated, the officer said, "That's not possible. If they shot you in the head, you'd be dead right now." And then Ryan would go back to be like, I don't know. But then the officer noticed something. He told Ryan to get closer. He would see bullet wounds on Ryan's face. You see, what happened was just a month prior, Ryan and Heather actually had a roommate named Richie, but Richie was hitting on Heather, so much so that it made her uncomfortable and she told Ryan. Ryan confronted Richie about it and they got into a huge argument to the point where Ryan kicked Richie out. He was so embarrassed by that he decided to plot revenge. So on December 23rd is when he decided to execute it. He broke into the house with his dad with guns and had actually shot Ryan twice, once just grazing his nose and the other in the eye. But the bullet never exited. It was just jumbling around in his head. And unfortunately, they did unalive his girlfriend. So for 6 hours, police would hold Ryan, not noticing this fact, neglecting his medical care. There was so much irreparable damage done by that time that he was no longer able to care for himself, and his parents took him in. 10 years later, Ryan would die from a seizure related to the injuries likely suffered from those 6 hours without any medical care.